Welcome everyone to tonight's virtual roundtable. We do have 85 participants this evening, and this session will be recorded and made available to anyone who isn't able to join us right now. We will be discussing and having a roundtable with the transition team for the proposed executive committee restructure. I'm Christy Yanyan, your club's marketing and communications manager. And tonight's roundtable topics have been brought together from our members' comments and their questions. I was asked to be the person to compile the commentary as it came through emails, as it came through the comment form that we made available when we put out the invitation for this evening's virtual roundtable. I helped compile these submissions and I turned them over to the transition team, who you will hear from in just a minute. Along with the emails and the comment forms, we've also heard from many of our region presidents. They are relaying information that is being told and talked to from our members. And they have been very involved in voicing their feedback over to the transition team. Thank you everyone so far for your input. It is very valued and it is very important. And we want every voice to be heard. Just a quick little bit about me. I came to the club just a year ago in April, so I'm just rounding out year one. And I spent 20 years prior to coming to the club in working a couple different places in special events. So I'm really thrilled and excited to be sharing my energies and my love for live events and helping with planning the international rally. So I look forward to seeing many of you there. As your communications manager, I want you to know that it is my goal that I'm always doing my best and doing my part to provide you with clear and consistent and concise information. And so with that said, one item of note for tonight so that you all have accurate information, the transition team report that was linked in the email invitation that first went out was dated in March. There is an updated report, and that updated transition team report is dated April 3rd. That link is included in the email invitation reminder that went out Monday night, and that is also linked on our website at airstreamclub.org. This webinar will last 45 minutes. We do have the opportunity for any participant to type questions or comments into the chat box. It's labeled Q&A tonight. Since we are aiming to address all of the previously posed questions from our members thus far, we're not anticipating a lot of time for open-ended Q&A, but we do want to address each and every comment that comes in. The team has asked and expressed a great desire for me to get these comments to them quickly, and they are excited to respond to them, and they're very interested in hearing from you. So I will get them to the team. And also, if you're commenting in that Q&A box, just make for sure to provide your full name in case you're using a handle that may not be your name, because it's important that I communicate directly back to you as well. So for now, I'll go ahead and turn the meeting over to Jenny Schnettler. Jenny is the chair of our transition team. Jenny?
Thank you, Christy. I'm Jenny Schnettler, and I'm serving you as the chair to the transition team, and I'm also a proud member of the Akron, Ohio Airstream Club. Joining me tonight, presenting more information and hopefully answering some of your questions, are Tom Smithson, Chair of the Constitution and Bylaws Committee and a member of the Northern California Airstream Club, Bill Wild, Region 3 President and member of the Top of Georgia Airstream Club, Kathy Giese, Region 10 President and member of the Oregon Airstream Club, and Bard Fuller, Region 1's first Vice President and a member of the Charter Oak, Connecticut Airstream Club. Tonight, we're going to discuss the two proposed constitutional amendments that every member will be asked to vote on. The first proposal seeks a change in the way our entire membership votes, with the intent to reflect a more accurate representation of what you want. The delegate system currently in place is often confusing and can be limiting at times. An improvement might alleviate both of these challenges. The second proposed amendment seeks an improvement to the way the Executive Committee, which is the governing body of our International Board of Trustees, is structured and voted for. The bulk of tonight's meeting will address this second proposed amendment to our Constitution. But before we get into all of that, I'd like to summarize just what this second proposed constitutional amendment is all about. As many of you already know, our club will be entering its 70th year. This is an extraordinary achievement to see an organization started by one individual and remain consistently vibrant for many, many years. The growth from those early years until today really reflects the passion that we all share, not just for camping, but for airstreaming. It's a unique culture with wonderfully unique individuals centered around one thing, enjoying just being together. However, to provide the substructure needed to facilitate rallies, the Blue Beret magazine, big red numbers, directories, etc., and all the technology needed to keep us informed takes a pretty sophisticated business model, complete with a complex budget, rapidly approaching $1 million annually. Our club has about 17,000 members, and with great stewardship, it will continue enjoying future growth. We are still utilizing the original leadership structure started by Wally Byam. No one can deny that it has served this club well for a lot of years, but we are seeing some cracks in the veneer. Members have noticed that attracting folks to fill leadership roles in both the local clubs as well as at the regional level can be, to use my profession's term, like pulling teeth. Some local clubs and even some regions have unfilled leadership spots right now. We received a question from Steve in Region 7 that asked, if we can't even get candidates to fill the spots we have now, how are we going to get even more candidates with your new structure? And that, Steve, is an excellent question that we hope to expand on tonight, and just one of the examples of how our current structure may need improvements. There's a great analogy. When you go to Disney World or Disneyland, everything is magical. Every cast member, that's what Disney calls their employees, puts your happiness above all else. But what Disney doesn't want you to know or to see is that there's an entire underground world that works to achieve that supposedly effortless, perfectly magical image. Well, maybe we at International might be a bit guilty also of trying to create an illusion that is perfect at the top. And no one wants to burden our just go camping mindset with details like budgets and bureaucracy. But the harsh truth is that it is not all perfect. We are experiencing a lack of cohesion because every single year we've been putting in an entirely new administrative team. I've listened to our officers express their frustration that training, which you would think with our third, second, first VP structure, would give all the newcomers time to really learn what the leadership jobs are all about, but this is sorely lacking. We see very little sharing of information from the outgoing officers to the new kids on the block, and it has evolved into an isolated, year-by-year, closed team. Maybe there is room to improve this to allow both better training and greater cohesion among our leaders, and Bill will help us navigate just what these improvements could look like. Nancy from Region 5 expressed concern that perhaps this proposal was moving too fast. Bard will address this point, but I would like to assure everyone that calendar days cannot measure the amount of time put into this effort. I think over 45 people have now worked on this, and it's impossible to estimate the man and woman hours that we've all devoted. Just our team of 7 alone have put in a combined over 800 hours toward this proposal to make sure that we look at every aspect, which thankfully you, the members, have invested in and helped us through with your questions and your comments. Have we been rushing this? Boy, it sure doesn't feel like it from this end. More on that point later. I've heard I just don't get it from a lot of people. I hope that after tonight, you might feel a little more comfortable with this idea and start to understand exactly what is being proposed. It helps to think of the International Board of Trustees as two arms of one body. The body is you, the membership, central to everything and every focus of this club. One arm of the International Board of Trustees is the 12 regional presidents. The other arm is the administrative limb known as the Executive Committee with 7 members. In a nutshell, our proposal to improve the structure of the Executive Committee is to shift from the current 7-member Executive Committee consisting of third, second, first vice presidents, an immediate past international president, a secretary, and a treasurer, into a model called the Executive Council, consisting of 10 members, with 1 VP, the president, the immediate past international president, the secretary, the treasurer, and 5 members at large. All members of the new Executive Council are to be elected by you, the members. The Executive Council members will serve 2-year terms, with elections being every other year. The roles of officers for our club will be chosen by the entire International Board of Trustees from these Executive Council members that you have elected. Kathy will be explaining how these changes improve the opportunities within our club. We will build on this simple concept tonight to address those questions you've been kind enough to send in. And we'll get started now with a brief overview of the voting process and a summary of the first proposed amendment from Tom Smithson, our chair of the Constitution and Bylaws.
Good evening, and thank you very much for attending this webinar. It's an opportunity to inform yourself about the decisions that you are going to be making later this year. First, let's talk about amendment number 1. This particular amendment is essentially taking what is now the Constitutional Delegates Meeting and removing that from our Constitution and placing any amendment to the Constitution into a direct vote by each member of WBCCI. That's essentially the nuts and bolts of that particular amendment. There is a policy statement which would, if this amendment is passed, which will come forth that sets the timeline and the procedures that will be used to implement any proposal coming from either the members, from the IBT, from the president, for another change in the Constitution. The other issue that I would like to discuss with you is the voting at the delegates meeting, the Constitutional Delegates Meeting, which will be held in Freiburg, where the 2 constitutional amendments will be presented to the delegates. Each member of WBCCI has the obligation to vote on these particular amendments. The delegate appointed by the local club carries then from the local club the actual vote of the members of that club to the delegates meeting. There are 2 ways that a motion presented to the delegates can be approved. First is without objection, the motion passes. If there is an objection, then it is a roll call vote. The roll call is where the delegate will present to the chair of the delegates meeting the actual vote of their local club, yea and nay, on each of the amendments being submitted to them. In years past, we have used something called proportional voting. We are not doing proportional voting. We're actually taking only the votes of the members. If you vote, your vote will be counted. If you don't vote, your vote will not be counted. We are not going to say, for example, that if you have 100 members and 50% of the business meeting where the issue is voted upon, vote that yay for that particular whatever it happens to be, and there were only 20 people at that particular meeting, but 50% of them voted. So in the past, we would say, well, 50% of the 100 actually voted yes. No, they didn't. Only 20% or 10% or 10 people voted of the 20 who were there. So this is a big, huge difference from what has been accomplished in the past or done in the past. And this is very significant. Your club needs to, one, take a vote of each and every member, they vote or not, and that vote must be recorded, and it should be presented either at a business meeting or it should be certified by the executive board of that local club so that there is a paper trail in case there is a challenge to the vote of your local club. Remember, when the delegates go to the delegates meeting, they will only be presenting the votes of those who have voted, not the total number of members in your particular local club. That's significant and needs to be taken into consideration by the presidents of the local clubs in preparing the election and gathering the ballots for this particular delegates meeting.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate those comments very much. You know, I've heard from a few members of our club that from their perspective, they see nothing wrong with our leadership model at all. And they question if it isn't broken, why fix it? Bill, I'd like for you to share some thoughts on that, please.
I sure would. I'm Bill Wild. I'm Region 3 president and a member of the transition team. And one of the questions that I heard most when I did my presentations at the Region 3 rally recently was, if it's not broken, why fix it? And I'd like to make the case that whether or not it's broken or not is debatable. Jenny alluded to that. It's true that the club is functioning, but it's not clear that it's functioning as well as it could. I remember that Wally said, don't make changes, only improvements. I believe that's exactly what this is amendment about. This fits nicely into our Moving WBCCI Forward initiative. That's what we're doing. We currently have a top-down structure. Communications generally become less efficient at successive levels until the membership is often barely informed about the workings of the club. The current structure typically brings in our third VP as the primary candidate recruited by the nominating committee, and all the other candidates are nearly automatic promotions to the next level on the track. Even the selection for nominees and treasurers and secretaries are heavily influenced by the officers they will be serving. So it seems that membership voting is essentially an exercise in Robert's rules, but it does little to affect the outcome right now. This proposal allows for the best candidates available at each election to compete for seats at the table. Ideally, there'll be real choices to be made by voting membership. Bios or resumes will be available to the membership to help them make informed voting decisions. Historically, incoming International 3 VPs have almost always been past presidents. While those individuals are still a valuable resource, the opportunity is open for any motivated member who wants to contribute at the international level. The candidate resource pool just multiplied 1,000-fold or more. This addresses a comment that Jenny made about concerns about being able to find people to fill these. It no longer requires the 10-year leadership climb to get there, which is typically 4 years at a local club and 6 years on region. The new structure is also a bottom-up structure. As Tom said, membership votes really count. The sister amendment to this that he also mentioned is the one that provides for direct member voting, in which all 16,000 members will have a voice, but not just the 8,000 or so joint memberships. If you and the other person on your membership disagree, then so be it. You both have a voice. That's what I had to say about it not being broken, Jenny. I'm going to pass back to you.
Well, Bill, that's great. And you really did lay out some very important points in addressing our second amendment proposal, which is to change the structure of the executive committee, improving it hopefully into what we consider the new executive council. But Bill, there's been some concern expressed that the addition of 3 new seats to the executive council might be too much power.
I've heard that. And I think that if nothing else were changing except the addition of 3 people, that might be true. People are concerned that cronyism could occur. I suppose that might. In the new format, the executive council members are elected by the membership. All of them, everyone, including incumbents, have to run to earn or keep a seat at the table. The International Board of Trustees, which is the combined body of the Executive Council, along with the 12 region presidents, vote to elect the club officers from the qualified members on the Executive Council. Therefore, we will have moved from an executive committee that is often built on relationships to an executive council that is vetted on qualifications and what is in the best interest of the club. We would now have an executive council that serves the mandate of the entire IBT, serves at their pleasure, I've heard it said. I would also like to address the perception that there's a competitive spirit between the region president trustees and the executive committee officers. And this is a topic that we may have failed to clearly address, but it's a very important point. In the past, and even now before we consider this change, we appear to elevate executive committees members. We recognize their international leadership with their more visible, quoted, published, pictured. They seem to originate all the action items, and they take center stage at board meetings and so forth. We think of them as running the club. But, and here's the very important part, the International Board is one governing body, not two competing halves. It always has been, it always will be. The Executive Council is the administrative portion of the club, and the region presidents represent the membership of the club. Together, they comprise the International Board. The Executive Council's members are equal with the region officers who also sit on that board with them. They just have different responsibilities. In addition, region presidents even have chairs and boards of their own with oversight over their own regions. But as trustees on the International Board, they're all equal. We install officers together. Most importantly, they have equal votes on the International Board, and we believe that the new structure will help to foster this cohesiveness, leverage the skills and talents of the IBT members, and enhance the value of club membership to the members. Back to you, Jenny.
Bill, thank you so much for your insight. Perhaps Kathy might share with us how adding additional members to the Executive Council can benefit every level of our club.
Thanks, Jenny. Kathy Giese, Region 10 President. And as you stated earlier, we are now a $1 million, close to $1 million organization with close to 17,000 general members. Our 7-member executive committee is responsible for the business of the club, which with the rapid growth we're experiencing has put more demands on the time, the travel, and the personal finances required of those 7 members. In short, we've outgrown our current structure. As a result, we've been limited in growing the club in the ways that both formal and informal polling of members and local club leadership have requested. Our organization is comprised, we need to be reminded, of general membership through local clubs, and our primary mission should be focused on assisting them with their needs. As I travel around and talk to different people in my territory and to my board members, what I hear over and over again is the local clubs need help. They're asking for assistance from international leadership in recruiting, training, and supporting volunteers for local club leadership on that local club level, assisting with member recruitment and retention. Our current structure is unable to provide the leadership resources to follow through on those programs due to their limitations. Under the current structure, there is no opportunity for, and this is another point, there's no opportunity really for general membership that wants to participate in an international leadership role unless they desire to be an officer, secretary, treasurer, or ascending to the role of president as third vice president, then second vice president, then first vice president, then president. Those are the only options right now. This has limited us, the members that may possess the skill sets needed by executive leadership, but who do not have aspirations to become the president. We have general members that possess IT, communication, legal, organizational, financial, volunteer training and retention skills, et cetera, but they may still work full-time. I have several of those in my organization, or they may have other volunteer obligations and they're not able to do travel required, or they don't have the hours that we require of officers in our club. So that's basically what I'm hearing in my region.
Well, Kathy, I understand that in the last 7 years, 2 surveys have been conducted of the full membership, looking at what our members would like to see the future direction of our club become. What happened regarding this?
Well, with the limited resources in the structure we currently have, long-range planning has not been able to be fully implemented, even though general membership may support those plans. When membership was polled, they want to see more national caravans and rallies offered, but with our current structure, we do not have the leadership to expand and offer those things. With the proposed addition of 3 members to the Executive Council, we will have the opportunity to offer more diverse leadership, a wider range of skill sets to serve, and needed support to the Executive Council officers.
Kathy, thank you so much. To return for a moment to Steve from Region 7's question about the difficulty filling slates of candidates, I would like both Bill and Bard to discuss how this can be improved with our proposed changes.
Who do you have first there? I think you, Bard, one of us was first. Unmute yourself, Bard.
Okay, well, I can start it off here. I'm Bard Fuller from the Charter Oak, Connecticut Club. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the nominating committee. Let me speak from the perspective of having sat on a past international nominating committee. Up until a year and a half ago, the nominating committee was composed of just 3 members who typically only met once a year. The committee would be convened once. They have the interested individuals that had come forward with a resume, and they would be reviewed, selected, endorsed, and then sent on to the membership for voting. Most often, there would only be 1 candidate for an open position, other than a possible write-in candidate. In 2021, the International Board of Trustees reconfigured the nominating committee. It now has 9 members, 6 of which are from different geographical locations, as they are comprised of alternating region first vice presidents. Our transition team believes that this is a great improvement and is a very good start in strengthening our nominating committee. However, the committee still needs to be jump-started. It needs to be active year-round. This would enable the nominating committee to communicate the available positions to all the membership and actively search out individuals that had skill sets other than just leadership aspirations. The committee would also be looking for an executive council members that would come from all over the country and Canada. Most of all, we're looking for individuals that are passionate about the Airstream Club. The electronic medium that we now have will allow our committee to actually interview candidates, which they've never done before. Ultimately, we want to have more candidates than positions that are available so that the membership really has some real choices. Bill?
And I would like to just add a little to what Bard said. First of all, it's worth mentioning that this is the whole subject of the nominating committee was outside the mandate of our special committee's tasking. However, it became apparent to us that it was really necessary to address that issue, at least at a high level, in order to be able to figure out how we might accomplish some of the things we want to do through the transition. So, as Bard mentioned, the present nominating committee includes some officers that won't exist in the new structure. I believe it includes the second and third VPs, first, second, and third VPs of the international. We don't know exactly what the new committee will look like, but we would imagine that it will include the VP and perhaps a member of the executive board who is not holding an officer position, and perhaps even a member that is just a member of the club and not part of the International Board of Trustees. So there's also a debate on how many candidates should be on the slate. Some people tried to come up with a hard number, but there's so many scenarios of what might happen. But what we really think is important is that there be enough candidates and enough qualified candidates so that the members actually have a choice. And in order for them to be able to have a choice, they need to know a little bit about those folks. They need to know where they're from, what region they're in, what past offices they've served in, number of things like that. A little bit of a resume, if you will, or a bio of their outside the club experience. And those will help our membership to be able to make informed decisions about who to vote for the people that they send to the EC. Now, sometimes you may find that by polling the members of the existing committee, you'll find out who wants to stay on the ballot and those that are planning on rolling off. And it may identify a need for particular talent if the treasurer is rolling off, for instance. And so the nominating committee may very well be looking for people who have those kind of qualifications. But it's important to note here that just because you have a qualification does not mean you're going to get that job. The nominating committee does not elect people to positions. They elect them to the executive council. The International Board of Trustees then looks at all of those individuals, and they collectively elect members of the executive committee to fill those offices. So it's important that that nominating committee do that kind of vetting and understand the needs, because if they didn't, it's potentially possible that they could send up a full slate of people and the IBT would find that they actually didn't have all of the skill sets that they needed to serve. So it's important for the nominating committee to be vigorous and intentional in their recruiting efforts. Jenny?
Thank you so much. You know, it seems there's a lot of changes that will need to happen in a relatively short amount of time in order to make this work. Bard, can you bring some insight into Nancy from Region 5's concern, are we moving too fast?
Okay, yeah, so we've heard that question across the country. We don't think we are. Let's just talk about the transition year, and we kind of slow things down a bit. The transition year will be starting this July and extending through July 2023. We'll see all of your 2022 elected officers on the council and no more. This is just as it has been for the last 60 plus years. They will be serving for just 1 year. The only difference is that the second and third VP titles will be transitioned to executive council members. The transition year will be initiated at this year's Freiburg's delegates meeting. Here, the membership delegates will vote on a constitutional change. That change being the constitutional restructuring amendment. This amendment will allow for the needed bylaw and policy changes to be initiated, developed, and enacted by the International Board of Trustees over the next several IBT meetings. With the extra year, a more robust nominating standing committee will be able to inspire, encourage, and engage members to seek seats on our new executive council in the 2023 election. By the spring of 2023, the nominating standing committee will bring forward multiple candidates, potentially including some of the incumbent council members, to be voted on by our membership to fulfill the seats of a full executive council. This executive council, as we've heard before, will have 3 additional seats and bringing the total up to 10. The members of the executive council will now have 2-year terms. The members of the executive council, this whole expanded group now will be able to share some of the administrative workload, so that there will be, and you also have an opportunity to have additional responsibilities as maybe outlined by Kathy Giese. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bard. You know, you shared with me recently that you had come back from the Region 3 rally led by Bill. And I heard that a lot of members see this as a good move, but maybe they feel they just need some more information. Bill, perhaps you might comment on this.
I will. I was asked recently when I went from being against this change to being in favor of this change. And my answer was I was never against it. I was ambivalent. It was not on my radar. It didn't matter to me. How did that change? Well, I was, I guess you could say, lucky. I was invited to be on the second and third phase of this transition team, special committee. The more I heard, the more I was convinced that we're moving in the right direction and that this really is a good idea. You don't have that benefit. Some of you don't have that benefit. You didn't get all this information. You didn't get to bounce all this stuff off the sounding board that this team has been for me. So if you are thinking, I don't understand it and I'm afraid to change it, then that's a valid feeling. If somebody asks you to do something and they don't explain how it's going to affect you, then it's probably a good decision to not do it. But we want to provide you with every bit of information that you need, all the answers that we can provide. The only way for this whole thing to work is for everyone who votes to understand the amendment. And the reason that you need to understand it is because it opens the door to every member to be a part of the international leadership without devoting up to 14 years getting to the top of the tree. You have the potential to be an international officer after serving only 2 years on the Executive Council. And more importantly, if being an officer is not your thing, you can contribute from the very moment you're elected to the Executive Council as a board member.
That is so great, Bill. Thank you so much. Would you share any final comments for us?
Well, I had another question that came up, and that was, this started out as a motion to allow 2-year terms. And people want to know what happened. How did this become what it's become? And I think a lot of people quickly realize that just going to 2-year terms only fixed one of our current challenges. And in fact, if we only did that, the international track would become a 10-year run by doubling all those years, including your past international president time. It would not expand the pool of candidates. If anything, it would reduce the number of people who have the time or would be willing to serve for that period of time. The full local club to region to international leadership track would be an untenable 18-year period. Nobody's going to want to do that. This is not healthy for the club, and it's certainly not healthy for an individual. So we decided there had to be a better way. And the amendment being presented is what this special committee believes is that better way. That's my final comments.
Those are great. Thank you. Kathy, do you have any final comments?
Well, I can't say anything much better than Bill just put it. The growth is inevitable in any organization. I've been involved in many of them, and there are always a few growing pains along the way, but we have an opportunity here, I think, to grow in a direction that our membership is asking for, and to provide the experiences that people want to have as member of the Airstream Club. So I came in also, as Bill did a little bit, going, well, gee, I don't know, maybe it's okay the way it is, but it's not that it's not okay the way it is. It's just that it could be so much better. And I think this is a step in the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. Bard, do you have any final words?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I believe this is a well thought out proposal. And with the support of the club, I think this proposal goal can be achieved. So let's get out and vote.
Thank you, Bard. And Tom, finally, do you have any final comments?
I would just like to reinforce what Bill has said and what Bard has said and what Kathy has said. This is an improvement, a significant improvement. It has absolutely no effect on the governance of any local club. But what it does do is it changes the governance structure of our overall club and improves it significantly. And that is going to be a benefit to the local clubs that they should not deny. That's it.
My final comments are to thank every one of you for tuning in. I really appreciate your attention to this matter and your commitment. To learn more, you may go more in depth by reading through the reports and attaching the information in the links in the website. Again, thank you so much. Christy, I thank you to having invited us here to share this little adventure we've all been on.
I echo that gratitude. Thank you to all the volunteer members that are on this transition team and who have spent hours listening to our members and efforting in this roundtable to address the comments that we've heard thus far. The questions and comments captured in the Q&A chat will be addressed. We will circle back to folks, and please stay tuned to your emails from airstreamclub.org, as headquarters will be sending out future communications in the coming weeks. Thanks, everybody, and have a good evening.
Bye.
Good night.